But to understand the weight of this fight between the twins, Esau and Jacob, you have to understand just how important being a firstborn son was in their culture. The father of the family in Hebrew times and cultures is the leader. All power and all authority in the household belongs to him. And when the father dies, it is the firstborn son that becomes the next father of the household and takes on all the responsibilities and power that role has. And they also receive a double portion of the actual inheritance. So more livestock and land and money than all the other brothers get, because they are the one who's going to carry on that family. All the property and work and care for the family will go into that oldest son's hands. And the oldest son also gets a special blessing, prayer over them as well. And we even find in Deuteronomy that God places special protections and provisions around this birthright, making it so if a man has multiple wives and he loves one wife more than the other one, no matter what wife, no matter how much she is loved or cared for, the oldest son that he has will get the birthright. God puts these special protections and provisions around it because it is so important to these people and their culture. It is the way that security and order was passed on from generation to generation. The entire Hebrew family is structured around this succession of power and property. And then we get to twin boys who are both born in this first son birthright position. If any of you have ever spent time or been around twins, because I have one of my friends' younger siblings who are both twins, and they are constantly fighting over who's oldest, who's better, who's actually in charge, who is the better twin, who is in control. Me and my siblings, you never knew, but because they weren't twins, my brother is 6 years older, and then my sister is 3 years older, and then I am the unlucky youngest child. You always knew who was in control, who had the power among the siblings. It was my brother. He was 6 years older, it was clear, he was stronger, and he was smarter. And so he was the one who was in control and in charge. There was no fight and no question because he could put an end to any question very quickly. But with twins, who only have hours or seconds in between the birth order, that pecking order is a lot less clear. And usually twins will just fight over that all day long, and Jacob and Esau here are no exception. Esau is much stronger, but Jacob is much smarter. And so that difference in power and relationship between them, this sibling rivalry exists, and there is no clear winner. But Esau, because he came out just that fraction of a second earlier, he's the oldest son, and he gets the birthright, with Jacob clutching on to his heels. And Rebekah was still pregnant with the two of them. God himself revealed that there would be this struggle between the two of them. Both were sons to become heads of their own nations, but two different nations that would be at odds with each other and with the younger child over the older child. And then they are born and they start to grow up. And we get a few brief sentences in our scripture today about this rivalry and how this rivalry is affecting the whole family. Esau is big, and he is strong, and he is hairy. He is a great hunter, and he walks in the fields. And so the fact That he is out there in the hunt and on the fields means he's probably working the most with his father. And so him and his father get along really well, and his father likes Esau the most. But Jacob is quieter, and he prefers to stay up in the tents helping and working there, while probably the women were also helping and working. So Jacob was spending more time with his mother, and his mother liked Jacob more than Esau. And while a lot of times when we read this story, we're quick to just scold Jacob as his evil trickster or laugh at Esau for selling his birthright for some soup, we also need to acknowledge how deep this division in this family actually goes, how the whole family was poured into it, and how the whole family had different sides between these two twins. And now we come to the meat of our story, where Esau sells his birthright, that firstborn son privilege, to Jacob over just a simple bowl of stew. Going strictly off the text of how this went down, it is technically a fair deal. It's not a good deal or a nice deal or even an even deal, but it is technically fair. Because Esau did have full knowledge of what he was doing. It's not like he signed a contract with fine print or hidden clauses, and it's not like Jacob pulled some switcheroo on him. Esau came in from the field hungry. Jacob had soup. Esau asked for some soup. Jacob said, "First, give me your birthright, and then I'll give you soup." And then Esau willingly swears over the birthright to him, and Esau gets his soup. It's really dumb. It was fueled by Jacob's own self-interests, but it is still a deal that both people willingly and freely agreed upon. As the oldest son, Esau had to know all of the responsibilities and privilege that came with his birthright. And yet he still traded all away from some stew. He was not a visionary thinker. He lived squarely in the here and now. And when he thought about all he thought about when he came back in from that field was how hungry he was. It's all he could think about. And I've been that hungry, but I've also never sold away that many rights and privileges because of it. And it's also important to note that as the oldest son, who puts in a lot of work in the hunt and on the field, and belonging to a fairly prominent and well-off family, there was no way Esau would have actually starved to death if Jacob didn't give him some soup. He's just being dramatic. Somebody would feed him. He's the oldest son. He's important. As far as we know, this family was not hoarding for food and resources. He could have satisfied his hunger somewhere else. He's really hungry, but he will live. He will not starve to death. But still, he can only see what's right in front of him. His reward is instant gratification. So when Jacob provides this instant way to gratify that hunger, Esau takes it without fully thinking about the true cost of his actions. Birthright is really important. And to trade it because you are hungry, it's just plain foolishness and a lack of awareness towards the future and its consequences, a lack of visionary thinking. Jacob, on the other hand, is a forward thinker. He knows he's second, and he will do anything to scrape and crawl his way towards the top. What Jacob imagines for his future is bigger and brighter than what the circumstances of his birth allows for him. He'll do anything to better his own reality. Now, I can't really say that I condone Jacob's actions because Esau is family and Jacob should be willing to help and aid him with no strings attached. And yet, Jacob still shows us that even when circumstances are beyond our control, we can still walk towards a visionary future where life is better than it is right now. This world is full of people and stories who have risked everything and even made a couple of wrongs or broken rules to create that better place for themselves and the people that they love, a better future than the one they were just born into. Jacob isn't really a hero in this story. But through him, we still see that God-given drive and humanity to make our future better for ourselves and those we love. To dare to imagine a future that goes beyond the simple hand and life that we were given. To dare to imagine and to work towards a better tomorrow in each and every single day. To not just see soup as a meal and a birthright as a bargaining tool to instantly get what you want, but to know and live into the future that birthright and blessing brings. To not just see dirt and a seed, but to see the bountiful harvest that is possible. In one of Jesus' famous parables, he describes the same kind of thing in Matthew 13. A sower who goes out to do his work and throws seeds on the path and on rocky ground and among thorns and then finally on good soil. And the seeds in the good soil brings a plentiful and bountiful harvest. But the seeds on the other ground doesn't make it. Because that soil that we grow in is really important. And that soil determines the success of the whole harvest. Crops can't grow if they aren't planted and cared for properly. And yet to do so, you have to engage in some visionary thinking. Esau, we can imagine as this sower, throwing seeds around willy-nilly, not really noticing and caring what kind of soil the seeds fall on. Because to him, stuck in this present moment, they're just seeds. But to a visionary, to our Jacobs, he's the one to carefully tend and plant in the good soil. Because they aren't just seeds to him, they're a harvest in the making. To the average eye, soil is just plain dirt. But to the one with a graceful imagination, soil is a bountiful harvest in waiting. Now, planting in good soil is hard work. You have to clear out the thorns or the rocks and make sure everything goes into that good soil and on the path or any stray land. And yet it's only by taking that time to clear out and to get the good soil that you'll be able to have that good and great harvest. If you only think about that present moment, and it will be the quickest and easiest now, you'll end up with your harvest stolen by the birds, or choked out by thorns, or not given a chance on the rocks. You have to plant with the future in mind, and go ahead and put in that work to make the soil good. You have to plant with the harvest in mind. You can't just see dirt and soil as what they are, but as what they can produce. You have to use your graceful imagination to prepare for and make that great big future that you want to have. And there's all different kinds of soil and dirt in the world and in our own hearts. There's also a lot of possibilities for our own futures. And the question is how are you tending the soil in your own heart and in the lives and spaces around you? Is this tending going to produce a bountiful harvest for the kingdom of God? Or are you only seeing what's right in front of you, trading a birthright for soup because you're hungry? God plays the long game. Way back in the garden with Adam and Eve and their first sin, God was already planning ahead and making a way for the coming of Jesus. And now God is still planning ahead to the return of Christ and the total redemption of the earth. Because God does not just see this earth as sinful and broken and a wasteland, but as this great, big, bountiful harvest that will blossom in its time. And as Christians, we must partner with God in this legendary visioning, to see the earth and ourselves as greater than this present moment that we find ourselves in, and to walk tirelessly with God to make that better future a reality, to tend the soil around us and in us, because it's not just dirt and it's not just some seeds, it's a harvest in the making. A harvest that is worth walking towards right here and right now in this church and in our own souls. Because what God is planning for us is greater than anything we presently think of or that we are presently doing. But through Him and His power, we can partner together in His work and create these possibilities and futures and harvest that bring glory to Him and to His kingdom in new and abundant and full ways. If you will only have the forward thinking and presence to envision it and then to actually work for it. To have the visionary thinking to see that harvest and then the diligence and the responsibility to walk towards actually making it happen. Through the tending of your own soul and the good soil within you, and through the walking the field itself, and this church, and this community, and in the wider world. That together we may not simply wait for the kingdom to come, but to bring it now and here. For God is with us, and God is walking now towards the great future that He has for us. Will you pray with me? Lord,